Self-discovery radio, but the discovery of self is but a show away. With over 1,800 shows and growing, we bring you those liberating stories that help you on your own life's journey from every single topic you can think of. The only common denominator is authenticity and living in your meaningful purpose. Come and read our new ebook, plus see our discovery store and what wonderful tools we have for you. Do enjoy our shows and don't forget to share.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Channeling Ascensions. I'm your host, Sarah Troy, along with my co-host, Christina Hill, and our guest today is Michael Bianco Spillane. And we're going to be talking today about that static energy that's out there. I know we've been hit with another tragedy, another disaster, another senseless killing, and we kind of think, when is it going to stop? There are things happen simultaneously around the world, and somebody says, did you hear about this one? Did you hear about that one? And we just simply cannot take it all in because it's all happening just way too much, way too often, and around the world, and we're getting to a point where we're feeling saturated. We're also feeling our energy is completely and utterly static. How do we ride that beautiful wave of divine energy? How do we seek to love and pour love out into the world when there is so much discord and breakup of energy going on out there? How do we stay true to that inner love that we know is the answer, what we know is the peace, we know is the solution? How do we hold on to and keep the beautiful fluidity of divine love going when there is so much going on? Well, I really do believe right now that the universe is making us shake it up, to wake us up, so that we step it up to change it up. And I do believe we're going to get a lot more shaking it up until we've woken up, to take those changes, to step it up ourselves. And this is important right now that we understand. It is the transition that is going on. It is the transition of energies. I've said repeatedly in past shows, the universe is going to turn the volume up on us. And in doing so, there's going to be some static. There's going to be some shaking up. And we've got to learn to not only live with that, but we've also got to learn to thrive within it. Turn our volume up on our own energies. Let that resonance of love reach out even further. So, Christina and Michael have got some wonderful tips and tools and thoughts on this and how you can actually flow with that energy even more needed at this time of static, and how we actually stay true in that love. Because after all, folks, love is all, and all is love. Welcome to the show, Christina and Michael.
It's great to be here, Sarah, and it's a joyful time, and Christina, it's great to be with you as well.
Thank you, Michael. Sarah, I so appreciate your channeled energy right from the get-go. A lot of love here, and we just tune into the love. So we're doing it right now. Thank you both for, once again, opening up, and everyone listening in, you're already tuned in, channeling into the energy that is all around us all the time, and the energy that's here for us, never ending.
Never ending, and never dictatorial, never judgmental. Love is so pure. And that beautiful divine energy is such a wonderful place to be. Now, Michael has been on the air with me before, where we talked about managing energies. And, when you're in that energy and you're in that flow, you don't think about managing it. And of course, it was a totally different opening to actually understanding of how to ride energy and not go too far off a field, and to how to manage our energies in such situations. And if ever there was a time of managing energy, Michael, it's right now, isn't it?
Oh, Sarah, it's an auspicious time for us right now on the planet. You know, the most recent tragic event in Las Vegas is just one of many, many things, as you mentioned on the opening of the show for our listeners, that is happening around the world right now. There's civil war, there's unrest, the Middle East. I mean, we just have to open our eyes and take a look at it. The energy is off balance, and I think you've really framed it up well, that there's this static impulse that the collective, individually and the collective, is feeling at this point. And it's a time for us to recenter ourselves, to reset the internal part of who we are, so that we can ground ourselves, because what's internal is reflected in the external collective as well. So we have an opportunity to reset and to recalibrate ourselves, and I think it's so important right now.
I mean, it's very obvious that we're going to get upset about things happen, and of course, there is a certain amount of outrage that has to be there because it's like, when is the madness going to stop? And it seems to be that more and more these things that are happening are just more what I call hysterical actions. Just taking everything above and beyond. Christina, I mean, you work in this realm all the time. Yes. And your angel Othello must be going, like, you're keeping me busy here.
Yes. Absolutely, and I know Othello is as always, she's great about chiming into these interviews, Sarah, when needed, and I know she's going to want to say her 2 cents worth. But that's from the eyes of spirit. That's from the eyes of higher dimensional planes. And that's Othello looking in on us humans and looking at, as you say, shaking it up, this shaking material that we're seeing, the outpicturing of these collective consciousnesses coming through and shaking our earth. Things are at an all-time imbalance, and really it's peaking. It seems to peak. Seems to come up like wave. Here we go again with that wave analogy. That's great how you said that, Sarah. If we want to go with that and see it as riding the wave, Othello points to this a lot. It's like you get your surfboard and you learn to ride the wave. And that's offering up no resistance. That is a lot of self-care and care starting with the individual, thus reflecting out to our loved ones, to the ether. So for me, I believe that our conversation today will be based in a lot of how we can stay connected, rooted, how we can also honor these feelings as they rise up in our experience, and to offer up resistance to these movements. And they could be huge. I mean, like tsunami type waves. And I think that's what we're in right now. Mm-hmm. So it's a matter of getting recalibrated, yes, and also learning how to ride these waves and making those choices. I mean, Michael, you wrote beautifully about the power of choice, and what choice are you going to consciously make to respond, not react necessarily, but to respond to what is happening, and then get yourself taking really good care of yourself, and then to the community, to our loved ones. Michael, maybe you could add to that as well. I feel like that's kind of the shift of where we're at right now.
Yeah, the respond and not the react, because it's a human condition to react, but how do we respond to it? What is it asking us to do? How is it asking us to step up, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Christina and Sarah, the analogy of riding the wave is, there's so many thoughts that come to mind as we're talking through this. When you're riding a wave, and for the listeners out there who've actually done surfing, or for that matter, downhill skiing is a great example of that. When you are in that moment, that Zen moment, you're in the present state. You're not thinking about the past. You're not thinking about the future. You are simply being, and you are in a state of pure action. And that presence, that state of presence that we're talking about, is a form of love and compassion and empathy and understanding. So when we make the choice, the conscious choice, to become aware of being aware, we step into a presence that offers us as human beings an opportunity to make different choices. Those choices that we can make individually that play into the collective energy, those choices that we make can be life-filling, not just for ourselves, but for those we are touching in our world. And that presence of love and compassion and understanding is exactly the shift, the recalibration, the reset that needs to take place. It's a very, we're recording this session here and to our listeners at the same time as the full moon. The full moon is happening at this point, and I believe it's sometime after 11 o'clock Pacific time here on the West Coast. And it's a time for us to, of course, we can think about all the craziness out there, adding to the craziness, but let's look at it a little bit differently here. This is an opportunity for us to to take a look at ourselves individually and understand that the external world that we are looking at, the reality of our world, is merely a reflection of the internal world that we hold. What do I mean by that? I mean that internally, the fires that burn, the rages that we have, the biases, the prejudice, the belief systems that we hold on so tightly to that our ego keeps us back with, limit us in terms of our experience, our reality and our experience in this world. When we become aware of the constraints and the limitations of our internal belief systems, we have an opportunity to relinquish those enough to be able to look at the world differently, to outwardly express ourselves in a way that gives us the opportunity to make different choices. Those choices that we make in our lives when we tune off the autopilot and step into a present awareness give us the opportunity to be life-filling, give us the opportunity to connect with another person in a different way. This is what's needed at this time, the static energy that we're feeling, this collective frenetic energy that we're all experiencing at this point. If we have an opportunity to step back and become aware and present in our world, we have an opportunity to make different choices. And now is the time to do that.
Yeah, the stepping it up, folks, because we're waking you up. And, I like that aware to be aware. It's so many people don't pay attention to what they're feeling in the moment, do they? You know that you're reacting to something, but how is it, making you feel? You're upset, yes. But what is that upset? You're mad exactly at what's going on. But how about you look at what you're upset about? Because it is the disruption of love. And how do you bring that love back within you? How do you get that feeling back of love? And I think that awareness of how you feel, of responding to what has happened rather than reacting to what has happened, will start equilibrizing that beautiful divine energy. But we cannot go out and react to life. We have to respond to life, and it has to be an inner response first, an inner connection and dialogue first, because whatever dialogue within is going to be what comes out, and we don't want what comes out to be as disruptive as what's going on. Christina?
I agree, yes. There's a rooting process that you're developing as a human collective consciousness. There's a rootedness that is available to us. And as Michael beautifully said, aware that you are aware. And it could start simply, and let's just take the recent tragic events, it could start by just becoming aware of the pain. Eckhart Tolle calls this pain body. Okay, pain body rising up. Here comes the story, the thoughts, just being with that. Just, and you could even you could set yourself a little timer. There are different ways that we can frame this so that it's more manageable. I'm going to give myself 10 minutes for pain body story. I'm going to let it rise up in my experience, and then afterwards I'm going to come to presence for another 10 minutes or whatever that happens to be, but that we give ourselves permission to come back to ourselves and to feel, realizing all the while that the material, it starts within. It's our ego story. It's how we're responding or reacting on the inside, and the thought energy, and boy, ego will just eat this stuff, for breakfast. It's interesting to watch ego, particularly when there is a perception of loss, and the storytelling, and the powerful energy movement, there again, that wave that comes up with the stories. So I think as a first practical step, what is really powerful, and what I've seen literally change people like night and day, is to allow and to be with any stories, any commentary, the mental movie, call it what you will, but to be there for it, and even if it's just for a fraction of a second, to observe that, to watch it go. And this is a lot easier said than done, and I know, and I think everyone here, Sarah, Michael, we've had our experiences where it's like, this is swallowing me up whole. But here it is, here it comes, and I'm going to watch it, even if it's just for a hair of a second, and being with it, because that fraction of a second of presence, you're watching this, the pain body movement, that's the start of freedom. That is liberation. That is change. That's light coming in through the body. And Sarah, you made a beautiful point, like how do we recognize our feelings in the moment? So often we're on autopilot. We hit the static comes with this numbing sensation in the body, like, you're just tuned out. So coming to the body, sitting for a few moments, and if you're at work, you could do this in the bathroom. I've had clients who've called me from their car, from their cell phone. You could tune into yourself any place just for a few moments and say, where am I feeling this? My feelings right now are here. Where am I feeling it in the body? And that, again, is another practical skill. And I'm sure, Michael, perhaps you have more as well to share about how we can just immediately, directly access ourselves in the moment.
Yeah. Well, the ego likes to be the guard or the sentinel, right? The ego needs to tell us that to reinforce our storyboard. The ego wants to justify and to qualify, right? And when you're feeling an emotion, and this is a great conversation, and I think it's really important for the listeners to understand how when we feel anger, for instance, it's very easy in the current world for us to be angry, right? And there's that voice inside of us that says, anger, that's bad, we shouldn't feel that, right? And when I work with my clients, I'm like, no, you need to, as we're talking about here, have that feeling resonate with you. Let it come to you. Experience it, and Christina, you're talking about being present with the feeling, and then release that feeling with love and compassion for yourself, and even forgiveness if necessary. This is when we step up. We step up to the ego, and we say, no, I'm not going to allow you in this case to control me. I am going to take charge and proactively respond to the feelings that I have. The other thing that comes to me that's so important here, and this is something that I've learned over the last several years. When I'm feeling angry, for instance, we'll just use the events that took place in Las Vegas. When I'm feeling the anger, it's easy for me to project and say that this is external to me, and how could this happen, and oh my God, and really experience that from a really separated point of view. Mm-hmm. What I've learned in the work that I've done in terms of my spiritual growth is to ask the question, what does this reflect in me? And to go inside and understand that it's an inside job.
Absolutely.
So to reflect on myself and say to myself, how am I contributing to this in some way? And then make that shift inside to, again, forgiveness, love, compassion. When I do that, I take control of the situation, and I don't let this consume me. And I very quickly can make an adjustment in myself and recalibrate my energy and balance myself to be able then to step into life from a present point of view.
Yeah, there's something I think that's very obvious that's going on right now, and kind of, as I said, I've predicted a while ago that there was going to be more shaking up to wake us up, because when things like this happen, we step into our humanity. All of a sudden we're fighting for the underdog, and we're fighting for justice and rights. We're coming together to soothe and care for each other. We're stepping up. But, why is it that it's...
The best of us. Yeah.
The best of us, right. It just is like we realize we're all in pain, and just even that hug, that healing hug for another, that support for one another. I hear you. How could this happen? Just that support you even get at social media. We come together. But I think maybe the reason we're seeing so many of these events happening day after day is because we're inviting humanity not just to step up when there's a crisis. We're inviting you to step up every single day, because this is where you're meant to be, helping one another, supporting one another, sharing that love, sharing that sorrow. It is an invitation for us to step up into our humanity, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh, the energy that we feel. Well, I mean, all the listeners can relate to this. I'm absolutely confident of this. When you step into the lights, when you step into the humanity, as you say, Sarah, the compassion for other people's suffering. When you step into that, it elevates the energy, and you feel that.
Yeah.
That's a physical, that's a spiritual feeling that we feel as human beings. It brings out the best. It touches the spirit part of us.
Yes. That beautiful divine spirit, right, Christina?
Oh, absolutely. Yes, and I can hear Othello here. I want to say one other thing before I access Othello, because I know that she wants to bring her light for being of light. You know, I think that her light is so healing in of itself, but also her wisdom in this conversation. I do want to say, too, there is no rule book that says that we can't just be with each other, like the beingness.
Yes.
You know, words of condolences. Yes, in social media where, okay, I empathize and I feel I want to support you, and yes, we're stepping it up. But there's also this realm of higher intelligence that beckons us now to simply be with our fellow brothers and sisters, with our communities, and we can be in, you know, there's various ways to do this. You can reach out hand. It's a physical touch, the embrace. And if you find yourself, you're talking a lot about these disasters, if you find that you're in a group and people are talking a lot about what these disasters have been, how they've impacted, there's a lot of pain body rising up in that conversation. You can be the one to uphold the space and simply be with that energy. And it's just amazing what happens when one person steps into a present light. There's transmutation. That's what I think of when I think of transmutation. It's an alchemy of light. And at that point, people, they feel, as Michael says, they feel this pulsating love. There's no words at that point, and it's like there's just this all-pervasive love, and that's very powerful. And I think that's something that's needed right now.
It's the sharing of it, isn't it? You know, we don't realize as human beings, we don't touch enough, we don't hug enough. And, you know, this time is what we need is these arms around each other. We need someone taking a hand and saying, I'm there for you. We need, you know, the stroking of the brow for people that are in complete stress. We realize how much that touch is the passing on of that light, of that love that you are giving to that other person, how soothing, how calming, how reassuring it is. And just for people who have tuned in for the first time, Othello is Christina's angel who comes in and speaks through her. So Christina will speak in a different voice. It's Othello's voice, and there'll be silence while she goes into Othello, and then Othello will come through and share. She's the third host in this show. So you let us know when you want Othello to come through, Christina.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
And just real quick here, the act of being present, talking about being, the act of being is really all we have.
Yes.
You know, we live our lives in the present tense, and if we are aware of being aware, then we're aware of being in the presence of living our life. And from that point of view, again, we can make different choices, loving choices, compassionate choices, empathetic choices.
Mm-hmm.
There are colorful states, waves of coloring all over the earth. Fear, the sensation of separation. When you fall out of ego and you are present, you are filled with coloring, and the fear leaves. There is just you. Humans, now you are asked to link arms, the essence of you, and be real for each other. Just as if you were to administer a first aid, rushing to aid you. Angels and the unity of the universe, which is incomprehensible for the human brain. You have aid. Love rushing in, aligning and attuning the chakras, and feeling this coloring of love is an angelic first aid. Let the tears come through the eyes. Notice they are made of salt and water, just as the ocean. Be aware of how the body quivers. Take yourself outside. Observe this moon. Look to the galaxy, the stars, sun, the humming of hummingbird or buzzing of bee. When the context, the material you are seeing outwardly becomes too great, seemingly too great to bear, return to this moment. Be outside, and you can enhance this. Nature reminds us of who we are. You receive messages quicker when you are in nature. Relief is now needed. Angelic first aid. Become aware of who you are. Then you will see the distinction. This is ego, and here I am. Be tender to yourselves, humans. Feel the love coloring your aura. What is my purpose here? And you are not separate from this love. You are it. I love you. Thank you, Adela.
Thank you, Adela. Adela,
Beautiful.
You know, the word that's key there is color. The colors of our lives. You know, color is also a beautiful healer, you know, as she said. And we're inclined to, in dark days, go literally and wear dark clothes and put ourselves in dark surroundings. And this is when we do need the music, the color, the vibrancy of life to remind us why we live and what life is all about, and the beauty and the abundance that is more prevalent than the fear and the hate. And step into the color of our lives, right? Because when we do, you know, we become that life, and we become a resonance and a reminder of what life is really about. And the more color and the more joy and the more music that we resonate, the more that people become intoxicated with that beautiful feeling. And the more we embrace that, the less we get to the other side. Michael?
Yeah, it's such a great point. Color, art, beauty, nature. It's a universal medium, and I'm thinking, because I'm a musician and I love to sing. I play music. I'm a guitarist, and I performed with major choral groups and masterpiece of music. And I can tell you from my own experiences that when I'm a part of music, whether it's listening, playing, singing, it is absolutely taps right into the spirit side of who I am as a spiritual human being, and provides me this balm, this healing, this love that I can access through the medium of music. Think about it from, I think about a Beethoven symphony, or J.C. Bach's music, and I think of these masterpiece music arrangements worldwide. It doesn't matter what culture we're talking about. In the human form, we all have a visceral reaction to it, and the visceral reaction generally is of life-filling energy. We feel the presence of something that we otherwise feel in our daily lives when we touch music, we touch art. And it's a great reminder to the listeners out there, when the days are gray, and I live in the Pacific Northwest, and Sarah, you're in the Vancouver area. It can get pretty gray here in this time of year as we go into the fall and the winter time. I'm reminded, and I really try to bring flowers, bring art. I don't wear dark clothes. I try to wear clothes that are light, that are bright, because it lifts my spirit up. And so we have some tools available to us as human beings when we are in an environment that's pulling the energy down. We have choices, again, that we can make to really offset and to rebalance and calibrate ourselves as we go forward. And color, the light, the beauty, being in nature, all of that is so essential to us as spiritual human beings. And we lose sight of that. We get caught up in our professional lives in particular. We lose sight of the fact that we have tools available to us that we can step into that can really change that energy and bring us back into form.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I completely agree. So beautifully said, both Sarah and Michael, that I completely agree with you. And it's okay to feel like a kid, to grab the Play-Doh or to grab the colored pencils, and some paint, literally getting your hands into it. If you're very artistic, and I myself am also a singer, I consider myself an artist of many different varieties. If it's music and it's hearing it, even if you're not a singer, but that you're singing along, gosh, music has that fifth dimensional quality to it. It does lift us up powerfully. So to create a list for oneself, I think it's important to have these quick vibrational changers at the ready, and that you have a list ready for yourself so that you acknowledge and honor, okay, this is my kind of self-care plan of vibrational change-ups, really quick, that I can just look at and say, okay, I feel the tug, and it's pulling me down. So I feel my vibration going down. I'm going to pull out my list. I'm going to take one of these things. I'm actually going to do it and take that choice, take that option that I have for myself, and really empower myself and go do it. And it could be something very simple. And you're right, Michael, getting caught up in our professional goals, goal achievements, and gosh, we're very driven, ambitious individuals. We have full lives and busy schedules. It can be easy to just overlook that and just pass it up and say, I'll be okay. I can power through today, power through this particular energy that I'm going through right now. But rather than that, we could honor ourselves and return to our knowing that, no, I'm going to take 5 minutes and I'm, sketch something cool, or I'm going to turn the radio on, I'm going to open my window, or go outside, play in those fall leaves,
Yes. Last week, Christine and I did a show with Donna Lee Caldwell, who's a galactic speaker, and speaks this beautiful ancient language which bypasses the head altogether and speaks directly to the soul. And Donalie's been working with me, which has been absolutely wonderful. And I feel that she reset me. Because the head and the ego wants to get it. Well, what is she saying? What's this really? Just get out of it. You have no understanding what's going on. The soul does. Mind your own business, really. But one of the things with Donalie's Galactic Speak, what I realize is, I suffer from depression a great deal, and since Donalie's been working with that, being pretty well obsolete. But I go to music, and it's, music, it just feeds me, and it calms me, and it lifts me up. But what I realized is that the Galactic Speak is vibration. She's speaking a frequency and a vibrations that's resetting the soul, the heart, and the spirit. Well, that's what music is doing to us. We are being consciously soothed by the sounds, sometimes by the words. But in the meantime, the frequency is getting in there and restructuring us, calming us down, resetting us so that we can get back to that beautiful central spot of harmony that lies within us. And so it's not just music. It is literally the vibration, the frequency that's going in and healing us. For some people, it may ring out in nature. It could be the artist that is compelled to paint, or the writer that's compelled to write. Understand these are your resets, and we have to honor them. One of the things I'd like us to go into today, because we're actually going to be talking about today, about how leadership role with interfacing with others in the workplace, and where there needs to be more light in the corporate business world. And in actual fact, when you look at what's happening in the world, all these things are happening because people are unhappy. They're unsettled with the status quo, with what's going on with leadership. And that leadership isn't just up at the political White House. It's in our corporations. We've become such consumers that everything is about consumption, and we don't care that everything's on a credit card, as we've put the planet on a credit card, and we're unable to pay this credit card right now. And it's all been about growth and expansion, and we've expanded ourselves almost into oblivion. How do we bring that back down? How do we look at the common sense? How do we look at what we just need? And how do we get corporate leaders to understand it's about the people that are working with you and that you serve, not about the bottom line and the big growth scale. Michael, I'm going to throw myself over to you first on that.
Yeah. Well, there's so much here. Leadership. First of all, let me just qualify here. Leadership or leaders, it's a ubiquitous term. We can talk about corporate leadership and business leadership, but leaders come in all forms. Leaders are parents, leaders are grandparents, leaders are teachers, educators, not-for-profit leaders, ministers, and the list goes on and on. Anyone who works to coalesce the talents and abilities of others to accomplish a goal can be interpreted as a leader. So first of all, leadership is ubiquitous. In my book, Conscious Leadership, 7 Principles That Will Change Your Business and Change Your Life, I lay out 7 different principles that I've come to understand, having worked over 3 decades in the corporate construct. The first principle in the book is being the real you. So often, and as a baby boomer, I grew up in the generation where I can remember my father and others telling me that you never want to mix business with personal. And that was a mantra that I had for many, many years. And then I realized as I got additional leadership authority and started to manage and lead others that, there was a nuance to this, that as a leader, not a manager, but as a leader, for me to be most effective and to be what I like to refer to as a servant leader, it was important that I got to know the people that I was leading and serving. I didn't want to know the details of their lives, but it was important for me to understand who they were as a human being. So often, particularly in the corporate construct, you've got your playbooks, you operate your policies and procedures, you've got your leading indicators, your lagging indicators, all of that good stuff that drives corporate performance for shareholder value. But what happens is that leaders lose sight of the fact they're actually leading and serving people,
right.
Human beings.
Yes.
It's not so much what you do, it's how you do what you do that makes the difference. And so much in the leadership realm, we have to talk a little bit about fear here, right? The ego keeps us in check and says, well, I can't step beyond this boundary. That chatterbox voice inside of our head that says, don't do this, do this. Am I okay? Am I going to be all right? What if I say this? That chatterbox voice in the head, that ego that constrains us, it keeps us in a safe space so we think. As leaders, we need to be prudent risk takers. We need to be effective, dynamic communicators. As leaders, we need to be able to step beyond the limitation the ego and fear imposes on us to reach out to those individuals that we lead and serve, to serve them. And I don't, and I work with organizations and I work with leaders in my practice, and I ask them questions with regards to, so what prevents you from doing that? What prevents you from stepping up and being present with those that you lead and serve? And many times they're left wondering themselves, and it always comes back to fear. What if I do this? I'm interpreted as weak. And one of the qualities of being a truly effective leader and being able to step through this fear, this ego state, is vulnerability. It's so interesting to me that when leaders are authentic and are vulnerable in terms of showing their humanness, watch what happens to the folks that they lead and serve. Those people become closer to them.
Yes.
Those people want to be able to do the work. You change the dynamic in the construct when leaders tend to being vulnerable, authentic, being more accepting, being flexible in their communication style. All of these attributes are a part of effective conscious leadership. And this is something that, for me, it's a practical application as well. It doesn't mean that a company, albeit a small company or even for that matter a not-for-profit, doesn't mean that you have to change what you're doing. It just means that as a leader, I'm changing how I do what I do, and I'm connecting with people from a much more compassionate, understanding point of view. And when that happens, believe it or not, companies actually profit more. Your customers are satisfied, your employees are engaged more, and what you have is a win-win situation. So it's interesting to me that companies don't realize the practical applications of stepping into consciousness from a leadership point of view.
Yeah. I mean, I know, Christina, you work a lot with people on this realm as well. I mean,
Yes.
It's waking up to that consciousness and for them to actually understand the benefits of it and how much more productivity they're going to have is key, isn't it?
Truly, it truly is. And Michael, I really applaud you here because you've done such a spectacular job of describing this, how important it is, and consciousness in the corporate world. I believe it's up on the rising. I believe that now we're stepping into, I know Forbes has published many articles on mindfulness in the workplace and mindful leaders and how we can, there's even courses that leaders, of course, can take so that they can have the tools, have a solid toolkit for leading in a mindful enterprise, in a mindful way in their interactions and also in these creative team building efforts. So having each individual working with one another and then taking breaks for meditation time and actually having space, even their community in their work environment, so that they can go and have a special area just for the mindful practice. So I know that this is developing, it's on the rise, and even, I can't remember where I read this, but I recently read an article about there's the doing and then there's the being, and how this skill of being while in your work environment, in your working role, is seen as something extremely valuable. It's something that employers are looking for. It's something that leaders are learning, they're implementing. And it does require that the ego has its place, the recognition of ego. It requires that we recognize ego, and then we recognize our essential, as Othello says, our essential selves. It does create this awakening in the individual, and I believe that's contagious. I think presence itself is a contagion, and it just spreads. It's this lovely ripple effect when people are in the presence of presence. Mm-hmm. And then creates vulnerability, authenticity, just naturally rises up. And also something to point out here is resiliency. There is this resiliency that we can develop in our communications within the workplace. I've seen this many times with clients who are in a leadership role in their company, or they're entrepreneurs. They're self-owned, and they're looking at the bottom line. They're looking at how they're interacting with their clients, their employees, and there's this natural resiliency, no matter what the external conditions may be, that there's this inner calm, there's this inner stillness, and this ability to go into being as a it's really a fluid motion throughout their day. It's not something that they just do once. It's something that they continue to do. And gosh, that's a very different way to be engaged in work and to be leading others. So I believe this is on the rise, and it's something that's quite powerful. It's just as important as learning these interpersonal skills, these communication skills, and in leadership, the opening and the awakening for consciousness certainly pays off in so many different ways, not only for the individual but for the company as well. And I believe it's contagious. So I think it invites others in, and they're wanting to also practice this as well. Have you found that, Michael, in your interaction with your clients or some of the companies that you worked for, that presence seems to spread?
Oh, it's fascinating to me, because in the work that I've done, both in the corporate world as well as working with clients, and what comes to mind is caring. So when an employee knows that I, as a leader, care about them, all kinds of magic takes place. When an associate, an employee knows that I'm interested in them, their performance changes, and they're much more engaged, and they feel as if they're a part of the world that we're operating in. And I've led sales organizations. I've led large sales organizations. Bottom line results. Hitting corporate targets. I've had lots of experience in leading those types of organizations. It seems crazy to me that, as I develop these skills, and I've actually improved in my own spiritual growth and professional growth in this way. When I shifted my focus to the principles I speak about and I write about in Conscious Leadership, so that the employees knew that I cared about them, all kinds of things changed. My performance changed. The interactions of my employees with my customers changed. Let's face it. People will buy from someone if they like you, and if they like you, it has to. We know the difference. We can feel the difference when somebody actually cares about someone.
Yes.
And so if I model as a leader that says, my employees know that I'm interested in them, I care about them, their well-being is important to me, that translates then, it models those skills so that they can carry that forward into their world. So from a practical point of view, you grow your business, you grow your customer satisfaction, it becomes a momentum that actually builds over time. And then we are seeing some, and Christina, to your point, I'm seeing in my own research and working with organizational clients that I have, I'm seeing a willingness for organizations to pick up on this and to actually try to inculcate this into their culture. And that's a good thing. And I think, go ahead.
No, I'm just looking at it from a slightly different perspective here. We create family. Look at the family dynamics. Mother and father are clearly, obviously in charge. They're the custodians, they're the guiders, they're the nurturers, and the children are going to absorb everything that mom and dad show them, say to them, interact with them. And, mom and dad can get down goofy and play in the leaves with the children, can paint funny pictures, can do a funny dance, but when it's time for serious time, or it's time that we're all going to go and be a part of the dinner, or we've all got chores to do, or no, mom and dad has put the foot down, I'm sorry, you can't do that because of this and that. We respect the parents' leadership, but the children know they have a voice, they have a participation in that family, they're very connected to it, and then you have a unit. Why can we not interact that in our business? The leaders are the parents. They happen to just kind of know more they're in that official role. But all of us have got to be willing to come to the table, our own wonderment, our own exploration, our own gifts, our own opinions. But then we honor that leadership as the final word there. if those leaders have taken in everybody else's into consideration. When a company treats people like family, when we give them a voice, when we give them an identity and say, I hear you, I see you, I respect your participation, I'm here to listen to you, you have a solid foundation there which to grow on. And it's not a question up in ivory tower with a weak foundation. It's about expansion, broadening out like a ripple effect, because people want to be a part of that family. And they're going to be extremely loyal and work hard to make sure they stay a part of that family. So everybody has an identity and a gift to share, and we need to honor that, don't we?
Oh, I've seen the results of this, Sarah. I personally have seen the results of this, and your analogy to the family is right on target. Again, when your employees, your associates, the folks that you lead and serve, know that you actually care about them, magic takes place. Yeah. And you do. You elevate the energetic ripple. You can't see the energy, but you know it's there.
Yeah.
But you know it's there.
Yeah.
Yes. And Michael, that's just so beautiful. So you're raising the vibratory state of all, and it begins with the leadership. I love the way you say, Michael, I love the way you say lead and serve. So if listening to this, and a lot of people are, they're working in, corporate setting, they're either in a leadership role or they're working with others. If you work in an office, then this applies to you. Are you in a leadership role? Like, check in with yourself, get the ego. And if you're in a leadership role, I work with clients and I ask this a lot, are you creating the identity? There's a little bit of elitism that can follow this title of leadership. And Michael said it perfectly, lead and serve. Mm-hmm. So have we gotten to a space where we've forgotten about the serve and we're just in our ego state of lead? Because that can be powerful too, and that can be quite an elitist dream there.
We also know exactly where elitism has got us right now, right?
That's very true. Good point. And when we bring in the family example, Sarah, that's so beautiful and so true, is that mom and dad are not in it to feel to fluff their own ego and to feel that they are the ownership of, they're the head of the household and, I'm going to fluff my ego with I'm the leader, I say then, it's to serve. Mm-hmm. I'm here in service. I am a guide I'm a conscious parent. I'm a guide for my children. And it's in that spirit that we can, adapt that same feeling, that same vibration into our workplace and approach people in that way. And with that open-heartedness, it's a feeling too. So if you feel even a twinge of superiority or this feeling of eliteness over a company or over other people because of your position, I think it's time then to look at that. And just to see it is enough, by the way. Just to observe that is enough, and then to say, gosh, I want to serve, and maybe taking a few minutes to readjust your vibration to where it feels. You can feel it in the heart space when you're really caring about your employees, when you're caring about your associates. There's a heart space feeling that it's like a glow.
Well, call it the ivory tower syndrome. And, they become, so elite and so protective over their position and over their power that they're completely disconnected to all the other flaws that are there, and have no understanding that their foundation is crumbling because they're so disconnected. And the true empowerment and true leadership, as you said, is when you are serving one another. If I can be of better service to the people that are working in this company, the better service they can give this company. And it's that constant cycle of energy, and that energy ball just keeps growing and growing and growing, doesn't it? Layer after layer, as the circle of service goes around and round and expands out like a beautiful, symphony of resonance of sound. It's so much more. If you're looking at the bottom line profit, this practice is so much more profitable, both financially and emotionally.
And Sarah and Christina, dare I bring up the topic of male versus female, masculine energy versus feminine energy?
That's another show altogether.
I'm with two powerful women here, and loving souls, and dare I say that certainly in the corporate construct, as much as I'd like to think that we're finding some balance here. There is this disparity that exists. And we're talking about elitism. We're talking about misogynistic practice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look at the world that we live in. Look at what men have done over the millennia in our world at this point. And again, what we're talking about in many cases here is about leaders who are allowing themselves to feel, allowing themselves to be in the presence of their emotions, allowing themselves to actually care and be concerned, and to have, and dare I say, love and compassion towards the people they lead and serve. These are attributes in energy fields that we need to bring into balance. And as a man, I am struck by how desperately we are in need of balancing the masculine and feminine energies here. And it's an auspicious time. Again, I'm going to bring it back to a little bit of astrology here. But we got a full moon that's happening as we speak. And we have Mars, and Mars being the male, the masculine planet, the inner planets in the astrological wheel, and Venus being our feminine, our goddess, that are just about conjunct at this point during this full moon. Again, we started out talking about the static energy that's out there. This is an opportunity for us as a human family, both male and female, to try to understand and to embrace the energies that are here at this point. And I think it's really important, certainly as we're talking about leadership, that male leaders out there and female leaders out there understand that we are both masculine and feminine. And to embrace those energies means that we actually step into service in a much more powerful way.
Most certainly we do have another show here, and we'll have to have Michael back on again, Christina. And actually, I'd like the next show to be, man versus women's energy. And talk about it, because there is a massive shift.
Lovely.
And women are becoming so much more empowered. And we don't look at power the same way as a man does. We look about empowerment. We are empowered to empower other people, where, masculine generally has been in the past all about the power they hold. And so let us do a show on that. But also I'd like to address another thing. Can you love someone or even give love to someone you don't like? And I think that is a topic in itself that we need to address. But that is most certainly another show. Christina, your points on that?
Yes, I think that would be lovely. And my CEO, my sponsor here is just pointing at, and I often, when we do these interviews or when I work with clients or when I'm just walking around in my own kitchen, I'll get visions and pictures. I'm often shown these channeled visions and pictures. So that's really where some of this inspiration comes from as I make remarks here or there to this point or that point. It's really funneled through the voice box from Othello. So what she had shown me, just as you were bringing this up, Sarah, is there are these male, female, yin yang, you could call them these oppositional yet unified sides, these energies that are just swirling around, mixing, blending, and then we see that we're coming into an age where the feminine energy is now on the rise. They're moving into the woman.
Yes.
And I hear Othello saying, be with it all. So we can drop those labels. We can drop out of this is this, that is that, and then the good and bad, and we can sort of sit with the energy field that we're feeling at any moment, and then I think that again, that hoists us up into a higher vibration. It is, particularly, like I said, it is something that we observe and have seen in the workplace, certainly, and as the world has evolved, we're moving from these energies, and we're learning a lot. And I think it's important to also just be very kind to us and very compassionate towards ourselves, and to start with ourselves. So again, I know I feel like a broken record here, but I feel like it's so important to just reiterate this point. We are energy beings, that we're vibratory beings, and that whatever is going on the inside is impacting our vibration, and that vibration is actually felt. We project it out, and if you're around a dog or a cat, your animal is going to show what kind of vibration you're in. Just kind of look at your animal and observe their behavior, because you're real
They're an
angry,
indicator. They're
exactly.
a reflection of us completely.
Totally, and it's a great way to just kind of say, this is, I'm becoming more aware of my energy. I'm gonna, hang out with my cat for a while, or hang out with my dog for a while, and be more like that.
Step into some good vibrations.
They're closer to a higher vibration than we are. So that's a great way to, and it's just simple things, but I think it's a great way to remind ourselves too that we are vibrational beings. And I would certainly love to do another show with you, Michael, talking on these dualistic energies, and then even the lunar cycles, how we're impacted by all of this, and what we can do to stay rooted within ourselves, both as dynamic leaders in leadership in business, but also as human beings.
Yeah,
it would be a great show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, on the versus love, because people say, well, how can I love someone I don't like, or I don't like what they're doing? And it's the understanding that sending them love is a part of changing what you think about them. So it's, I think that's something we can interact in that topic as well. So folks, you're going to be having another show coming up in the next few weeks with Michael on this topic. We invite you to keep, following us here on Channeling Ascension, selfdiscoveryradio.com. It's under the Empowerment banner. And, join us for this show. Please share it, because we want you to have a conversation around it. What have we said today that sparked in a conversation, a question, a dialogue between you, with your co-workers, with your family, with friends, and spark your own conversation, because we're here just to share ours, and we want you to converse with each other, because that's how everybody grows. So, Michael, would you please let everybody know how they can get you?
Yes, of course. My website is illuminateambitions.com. That's illuminateambitions.com. You will see that on the website there's both phone number as well as email. And I invite you to not only look at my website, but I'm also a certified transformative life coach, spiritual mentor as well. I work individually with my clients. I work with organizations in terms of bringing these principles that we talked about, conscious leadership principles, both from a training perspective as well as a performance consulting perspective. And I would be delighted and honored to hear from the listeners out there.
Wonderful. Thank you. And Christina?
Such a joy. You can reach out to me very easily, and to Athela simply by going to athela.org. So it's ATHELLA.org. And it is very simple. You can kick back and dive into the energy. There's plenty of free products there and meditations that is all embedded with the energy of Athela. And I invite everyone listening to consider either meeting with your guides. I have a private session because I'm a first-person channeler. I do private sessions with individuals, clients from all different kinds of backgrounds. And to meet with Athela as well. A one-on-one session with Athela is different from what you see here. These are true roundtable type conversations, and I know Athela shares a little of her wisdom and insight, but to have a personalized session is quite different, and I have some testimonials up that you can kind of look at, or come to one of our live events. And specifically, though, for people who have been impacted by trauma, loss, grief, anyone who feels a calling and wants a metamorphosis in their life, a sustained metamorphosis and change to transformation, that you consider a retreat. I am running Athela's Monastery here in the Yucatan Peninsula, and it is second to none, and we do conscious movement. We visit the sacred sites that are in and around this area, and it's a meditation retreat for families and their children. And gosh, there's no better way and no better time to raise the vibration of yourself and your family than by coming in and having a sustained period of time for yourself and with your family here in this beautiful region. So I invite you all, and thank you so much, Sarah and Michael. I'm really honored. This is such a treat for me every single time. I feel very honored, deeply honored, and I'm
We're curtsying. And just to let people know too that we're part of a fundraiser here on the community side of things, is because we know that there's a lot of people, families that need to go to Christina's retreats and they can't afford for the whole family to go. So we have a fundraising platform here that will allow whole families to go, because when they're all in that ascension together as a family unit, they're going to go out and vibrate that beautiful ascension out to their community. So we are fundraising to do that. So again, you can just go to selfdiscoveryradio.com onto the community page and see Channel Ascensions, Ascensions, and you will see all the information there. And let's give families a chance to ascend together, because the impact they have on their community is exponential. And we all need that. We all need to step into that higher consciousness. So thank you so much, Christina and Athela and Michael, for being with us here today.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you so much. Really honored to be here.
I enjoyed it very much, and I look forward to the next one. So, folks, please, as I said, share it. Have a conversation. You can also look back on all the other shows I've done with Christina. It's right here on Channeling Ascension. And, we're here, we're here in service to you. And we want you to grow and be all that you can, because you are meant to be abundant in life. So until next time, folks, bye for now.